Alright, this comes up all the time. Let's go ahead and talk about Overland Travel. When last we this is actually going to be part campaign diary, but part just DM lessons. I'm not really going to talk that much about the story of my game because, the story is sort of secondary to the lessons that I was learning and things that I was implementing this week. And cool stuff happened, but not crazy stuff happened. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So the players in my game have to travel like 10 days across, relatively safe territory. It's inside of the safe-ish nation that they are in. They're not traveling through, hostile gnoll-infested lands or anything, but, it's big overland travel, and especially in, a fantasy medieval kind of setting. Shouldn't that be interesting or cool? Well, I'll kind of just download some of my thoughts on Overland Travel here. First off, not necessarily. I think it's totally reasonable to say the players get there. Now what do you want to do? If travel is not going to be a significant or interesting part of your game, that's fine. It really isn't a big deal. I know as DMs, a lot of times we feel like, if you're going to travel for like 2 or 3 weeks, you got to really earn it and feel like you're traveling through the world, feel like time has passed for these characters. You can do that. You totally can do that. But do you have to? I don't think so. Sometimes I like saying, alright, so the journey is going to take about 2 weeks. Are there any things that your characters want to talk about in those times? What are some things that you might share with each other around the campfire? What does a typical day look like? Who's doing any hunting or foraging? Who's cooking meals? Things like that, just to get the players thinking about things that aren't combat stats for 1 second. And to get them sort of role-playing a little, maybe we'll have a couple cool little scenes, and then you get there. There doesn't have to be these big challenges or anything like that to achieve your long-distance travel goals as a party. So that is certainly one of my thoughts and approaches to big overland travel. Another thing that I do quite frequently is a skill challenge. A skill challenge is a mechanic from 4th edition that you may have heard of through the community a while back. It's been talked about quite a bit, but they're basically a way to simulate a montage, getting the players to engage with their skills in creative and interesting ways to help the party travel more quickly, more safely, whatever. The only catch with that is that there's got to be some kind of penalty for failure. What does that mean to fail overall on the whole skill challenge? Maybe people get sick. Maybe they're delayed. Maybe a time window is missed. Maybe by the time you arrive at the place you are going to, there are more bad guy reinforcements than there would have been. I don't know. But there's got to be some sort of consequence to failing a skill challenge, sort of baked into that. If you have never heard of a skill challenge, I highly recommend either Matt Colville's video. There's a bunch of videos online from really great creators that you can go and find a better explanation than I would give on skill challenges. But I've done both of those things before, and I wanted to do something I've never done before. And so I was looking at different sources for overland travel and ideas for that, and credit where it is due, I watched Dale Kingsmill's Overland Travel video, so Monarch's Factory on YouTube, and she has a really, really cool accent, first of all, but second of all, a really, really cool video about overland travel and thoughts behind it. I'll link it down below, and it was a neat chart, and you get to roll and then figure out what's going on this chart, and it's broken up by morning, afternoon, evening, and pre-dawn, and you just sort of players will roll on the chart, and you just kind of go through what is prepared on that day. And it was really neat. We didn't do every single day. It was like 10 days of travel, and so that would be one, a little bit repetitive, but two, just a lot just to travel. And so I think I did 3 or 4 different days on the chart, so to speak, and every other day was normal. But it was really interesting. Players had a lot of space to interact with things narratively. I will obviously link the chart that I use down below so that you can steal it, modify it, take it, do whatever you want with it. But there were interesting things happening. Like in the morning, heavy rain starts falling. They can hear the rumble of thunder in the distance. Heavy rain has been falling for a while. The path is starting to get muddy. If they continue to travel, they see lightning striking near them. And then they need to roll a percentile, and then anybody who rolls under a 5 gets struck by lightning, and anybody who rolls from 5 to 10 has lightning strike near them. And that actually happened. This is a day that happened. My players decided to press on because they're like, it's rain, so I don't know, we'll get muddy, but we'll be fine, right? And then somebody climbed a tree to scout out the terrain ahead to see if, the storm cleared up later. And that person got struck by lightning and almost died. It was cool. Obviously the party was there. They were able to fix them, and if they had fallen unconscious, they would have been able to heal them. Luckily it was the Barbarian, not the Bard, that got struck. But yeah, somebody got struck by lightning. How cool is that? This is not like a plug for engagement. A little bit it is, but I genuinely want to know, when's the last time somebody in one of your games got struck by natural lightning? Not like the lightning bolt spell, like hit by a lightning bolt, like lowercase lightning bolt. When did that happen last in your games? Mine happened last week. So this chart creates all kinds of interesting interactions. They come across a snake and a honey badger fighting, and they get to place bets on who wins and things like that. And they watch these two, scrimmage for a second, and then sometimes things are related, like the storm. Sometimes things are not at all related. So they see the honey badger and the snake fighting, and then at lunchtime, they break for lunch, and somebody is sitting on an anthill, and they're itchy all night because they had been bitten by ants, and you just kind of roll randomly. One thing that was super cool is I got to ask the players, hey, who is preparing the meals? Like at the beginning of this venture, and then the players, I think, rolled the thing that is, everybody gets food poisoning from poorly cooked meal, and so they got to have a little you are the one who cooked dinner, come on, you gotta check the ingredients better and stuff like that. So that was a great little moment, and obviously I have players I think who do a really, really good job of engaging with some of that role play, but this chart I felt like gave them lots of cool opportunities to do that. And so I think it'd be awesome to see this fleshed out as like a D100 table, so I could just use this chart over and over again for every Overland Travel. And that'd be really cool, and maybe something that I might chip away at in my free time. I'm sure people on Reddit have done great things. That's mostly where I would, steal ideas from anyways. If I was going to turn this into a D100, I was go find Overland Travel charts on Reddit and then flesh them out a little more or modify them or whatever. But yeah, if anybody in the comments wants to tackle that and start expanding it, even just making it a D20 chart instead of, I think it's right now a D10 on mine, that would be super cool. But it's a lot of interesting ideas like this, and so I'm loving the idea of sharing it with the community and you guys taking it and running with it as much as you would like. There's a lot of different ways to do Overland Travel, though, and I think that if you want to just hand wave it and say, cool, you get there, that's totally fine. If you want to do a skill challenge, that's also fine. If you want to do a chart like this, that's also fine. If you want to do simulationist level, every single encounter and rolling for getting lost and bandit ambushes and random encounters is another great way to do it. I don't think there's really a wrong way to do it. What I think is that the way that you do Overland Travel will communicate a lot about the flavor and tone and style of your game. So in a heroic fantasy kind of game, you're probably going to want to be doing hand waving and montages, and that's not the point of a heroic fantasy game. We see lots of Overland Travel in the Lord of the Rings, but it's not, hundreds of hours of the film as it would have been in actual minute by minute. We see the cool moments. We see Moria. We don't see all of the walking from Rivendell to Moria. I guess, spoilers for the Lord of the Rings, they choose to go through Moria instead of over the mountain. If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings at this point or read the book, I don't know what to do for you, really. And on the other hand, if you want to have a game that is really simulationist and gritty, realistic, that sort of thing, maybe you want to have a slower paced travel and, institute things maybe like a gritty rest variant while you're doing overland travel. Things like that, I think, maybe make for a more, gritty, down-to-earth kind of feel of a game, if that's what you're going for. I don't think there's really a better or worse option. There's just things people prefer. So figure out what you and your group of players prefers, and then start to mess around in that style. I typically prefer the sort of hand-wave montage kind of travel, and so I was like, let me just roll on a chart a few times. There's not, like, combats and stuff on here and like gritty people getting diseases and stuff like that. So it's really hand wavy and like, here's a day, it just kind of happens. What do you guys want to do? I think they had to figure out how to cross a rushing river, and they've got a wagon and a horse and everything. And so it's just a neat little problem to solve. And that's all it is. Just different ways to engage with problems and encountering the world in ways that aren't, here's a bunch of hit points, kill them. And so it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun using this chart. I will use it again for sure. And I just wanted to share some of my thoughts about Overland Travel in terms of the narrative of my game. If that's something that you are interested in, the players traveled from the tomb of Ribald of Palanthros. Using this Overland Travel system, they made their way to the town of Bullridge, where some demons had probably attacked recently, and they were trying to figure out what had happened exactly. All they really did once they got to Bullridge, because the travel kind of took a little while in terms of session length, all they did once they got to Bullridge was sort of get the lay of the land and figure out there are 4 key players here now that the Baron is dead in terms of major leadership type people that they're going to need to talk to. There is the High Magistrate, Madeline Marigold. There is the new Captain or Commander Hawthorne. The commander of the guard was killed in the exchange, and now there's a new guy who was a captain and I guess is now the commander of the troops, Captain Hawthorne. There's also Valerie Rellan, the High Priestess of Bahamut, as well as Marcus Artus, the Baron's personal advisor. And so the players learned who these people were, and they're like, all right, I guess next time we're going to go talk to all these people and figure out what are their accounts of what happened and see if we can sort of untangle some of this web and figure out the truth of what's going on here in the town of Bullridge. So those are some of my thoughts about Overland Travel and the tone and style and the things that it can do for you in your game. Let me know what you think about Overland Travel. If you want to engage in the comments, I always enjoy reading and responding. If there's anything of substance, I respond to every single comment that I think that there is something to say to that comment. So please, I'm active in the comments. It's really fun for me. But let me know, what do you do for Overland Travel? How do you generally play Overland Travel? Does it change based on the level of your characters? I know for me, my Overland Travel usually gets less and less significant the higher in level players get, but maybe that's not true. Maybe the higher in level you get, the more of the country or the continent you are crossing, and so therefore the more important Overland Travel is. Let me know what you think. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.